Okay. Huh?
Female twist on that.
On what?
You actually can't, can you?
On what?
Being a male, you can't actually do a female twist.
Can you make it a little bit more pleasant?
All right, everybody. We're back. Glad to see you all here. Dave, nice seeing you there, Dave. All right. You want to put me up on this?
Okay, yeah, I sure will.
Okay, healthy relationships. Oh, we've lost a couple of people. An intimate relationship can improve your life or make it miserable.
What? Sorry,
I said an intimate relationship can improve your life or make it miserable. So what's normal in a relationship? When I was doing all this research for this years ago, and then even again last couple of weeks, I found some really very interesting statistics, okay? So how many people in the United States do you think come from basically functional families? Now, don't answer that yet, because I want to read to you what a functional family is, okay? So a functional family of origin is a family unit or a home that basically equips a child with the necessary emotional, intellectual, and relationship skills to deal with life as an adolescent and as an adult. Emotional, intellectual, and relationship skills. In a functional family, we learn to recognize what we feel, put a label on it, put a label on that feeling, and then tell other people about the feeling. Conversely, we gain the capacity to care about what others feel, to listen to their feelings, and to respond to them. A functional family also prepares children to cope intellectually with the world. It teaches them how to think clearly and accurately without major denial. It teaches them how to see reality more or less for what it is. And finally, a healthy family teaches children how to relate in a productive manner through relationships with other human beings. So, then we get back to the question. How many people do you think come from a healthy, functional family?
2%.
Well, the best that I could come up with, and this was the best case scenario, was 25% of the adults in the United States today come from a healthy, functional family. 25%.
They're all married.
Where did you find this?
Just
That reference, please.
just in a lot of different, just reading a lot of different articles and a lot of different things from the government and a lot of different things from relationship seminars and things like that.
I went to a treatment center focused on dysfunctional children.
Uh-huh.
The lady that ran it was Pia Melody. And she said out of 30,000 people that have come through her program, 3 people had no childhood trauma at all.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming.
Yeah.
They were in 3.
Yeah, but you see, that doesn't change the statistic though, because you can have childhood trauma and still become from a healthy, functional family because they teach you how to deal with that shit. So again, I'm not making this figure up, but I don't have any one thing that's just from doing. I did a lot of research years ago and a lot the last couple of weeks, and this is what I come up with. About 25% of the people in the United States today come from a healthy, functional family. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is that if 25% of people today come from a healthy, functional family, that means that 75% come from a dysfunctional family. So if you come from a dysfunctional family and happen to meet one of these people, the relationship's not going to be great. It's going to be a strange experience. Because people who come from functional families have learned unconsciously how to relate in a productive, healthy, and intimate manner with others. If you come from a dysfunctional family, you have learned unconsciously and habitually to relate with others in a destructive style of intimacy. So again, if 25% come from a healthy, functional family, 75% come. So if 75% come from a dysfunctional family, it is the normal in the United States of America in today's time to be from a dysfunctional family. You have to understand that. That is the normal today. Dysfunction in a family, a dysfunctional family is the norm today. So instead of asking what is normal in a relationship, let's ask what is healthy in a relationship. What does it mean to have a healthy relationship? In this respect, I don't want to be the norm of society. I want to be the abnormal. Healthy relationships are based on the ability to do two basic things: to identify your thoughts and feelings and to communicate them. To identify your thoughts and feelings and to communicate them. So here's an exercise. This is just a little quick, silly little exercise. And you know how they say on TV, don't try this at home? Well, you guys on Zoom can try this at home. So everybody sit back for a minute, put your pens and your books down. Just sit back for a minute and settle into your chair. I want you to take a deep breath, close your eyes for a minute, and notice what's going on inside the center of your body. Keep your eyes closed. Notice what's going on in the center of your body, from the pit of your stomach right up to your throat. See if you can put a word or a label on that feeling. Take another breath and notice if you've got a conversation going on in your head. Then take another breath and note whether your mind has a tendency to go away and escape to a special place. Okay, now come back out of yourself. And I want you to turn to somebody next to you and look them in the eye and say hello. Then share in one word or one phrase what that feeling you just felt was, the name that you put on that feeling. Do that now.
Danny always says nothing.
Okay. All right. So John was in his nothing box. And he was thinking of nothing. Okay.
Do you feel nothing?
Yeah, you can. I mean, that's just a little experiment, but the idea of this is, pay attention to this. That little experience goes through the process. This is what I want you to understand, that goes through the process necessary for having a relationship. Because a relationship is simply the process of relating to another human being. In a relationship, you do three things. And we already mentioned the two of them. All right. You look within yourself to identify your inner experiences. What are you thinking and what are you feeling? Then what do you imagine, either through memory or projection of the future? And then you pull yourself out and connect with another human being by telling him or her the nature of that inner experience. That's what you just did, right? Then you listen to what the other person has to say in response. Those are the three basic skills of a relationship. After listening to what is going on inside of your partner, you repeat the process. You listen to him or her, then you go back inside yourself and notice if your inner experience has changed. You pull yourself out, tell him or her how it's different now, what you're thinking differently, how you're feeling differently, what you're imagining differently. And then you attend to what they're saying back to you. So that's how you're going to start learning how to have a relationship. Now, you have to understand something. This is simple only if, as a child, you have learned unconsciously to develop the habit of doing that process over and over again. So if you've come from a functional, healthy family, this is what healthy, functional families teach children to do from the day they are born through role modeling, practice, and correction until it becomes an unconscious, habitual process. It is a process that people from dysfunctional families never learned. As a result, they, as adults, have to start the painful process of taking each one of those behaviors apart, relearning them, and doing them repeatedly until they get into the habit of doing it. Initially, it's painful, but for those of you who have begun this process, it gets easier over time. Now, if you're in recovery, you have an advantage because that's what the steps will help you do. So, for those of you that are in recovery but don't work steps, I always tell people that that's kind of like plowing your field and not planting nothing. It just don't make any sense, right? It's like buying a new suit and putting it on without taking a shower. You may look good, but you still stink. Okay. So if you're in recovery and you don't work steps, I don't know what's going on. But if you are working steps, then you have an advantage to start relearning the process of having a relationship. So to understand the process of building a healthy relationship, we have to look at the different levels on which relationships operate. And this is very interesting. People from dysfunctional families often fail to recognize that healthy relationships can operate on a number of different levels. So this goes for people that have been together for years or people that are just starting or somebody that you want to have a relationship with. There's different levels in a relationship. We're going to go over the different levels and we're going to see how a healthy person goes about that. Okay. Problems occur when one person is operating at one level of a relationship and the other person is operating at a different level of a relationship. The expectations just don't match, and all of a sudden you're not quite getting from your partner what you think you should be getting. Your partner, though, is giving exactly what he or she chooses to give. It bends us out of shape a little bit, okay? The second thing we've got to explore is the nature of dysfunctional or addictive relationships. These are the types of relationships that alcoholics and drug-dependent people tend to get into once they get sober, and that of adult children tend to get into once they start growing up. So this is really tailored right for you guys, so pay attention. Then we're going to examine the characteristics of these relationships and compare them to the healthy counterparts. That's what we're going to be doing for the rest of this thing here. We'll see how to set up a vision or a goal of what is healthy and how we can start growing toward it. We can look at how to change our style and method of relating. And finally, we'll look at some general steps from the beginning of the process of growing out of an addictive relationship style into a healthy, functional relationship. Now, some of this is ugly. Most people from dysfunctional families learn early on that they have two relationship options: intense, painful involvement, or isolation and abandonment. I want to say that again for you. People from dysfunctional families learn that they have two options: intense, painful involvement, or isolation and abandonment. I can choose to be totally dysfunctional and intensely involved with another human being until it hurts so bad I can't stand it, or I can be so completely alone that it hurts so bad I can't stand it. Life becomes a vacillation between painful loneliness and painful involvement. Not pretty. Painful loneliness or painful involvement. We fail to recognize that relationships operate on a continuum of levels. And again, they don't care if you're married 40 years. Continuum of levels. This is how a healthy person does it. Or let's first go through the levels of relationship. Okay. The first level is, we're going to call it superficial involvement. Superficial involvement. Now, superficial involvement occurs in a relationship when people interact in a very casual manner and have little investment in and absolutely no commitment to the other person. Casual friends and short-term associates fall into this category, as do waiters in a restaurant or a housekeeper or somebody in your building or someone at work. You may say hello, shake hands, and never see them again. Or it may be somebody in a group with whom you go out to dinner or take a raft trip down the river for a weekend or skiing trip somewhere. These are casual relationships. Now, pay attention to this because this is so on the money. These casual relationships may be non-sexual or sexual. Sexuality is no longer an indicator of intimacy in our culture. I want to say that again. Sexuality is no longer an indicator of intimacy in our culture. And this is important to recognize. Simply because someone wants to be sexual with you, whether they be male or female, does not necessarily mean they want to be intimate with you. The culture revolution has come and gone, and sexual practices have changed. People may seek only casual, superficial involvement sexually, which is morally acceptable to a lot of people. Most people from dysfunctional families feel guilty when they get involved in a superficial relationship. I should be so much more to him. They find themselves rescuing people from their personal problems. There's a tendency to escalate this relationship. The expectation says, if I'm going to get involved with someone, it's going to be very intense and very committed. I have to shrink my social world to almost nothing because it's not okay to have superficial involvement. And healthy people know that it is okay to have superficial involvement. You ever have a friend that got in a new relationship and you don't see him for weeks? Yeah. They get to the point where it's me and you against the world, honey. Not healthy. So that the first level, superficial involvement. The second level of relationship is what we're going to call companionship. In a companionship, two people associate for the purpose of sharing common activities. For example, I have a friend, I call her up to see this movie I want to see. This is a shared activity. Suppose I call her up and say, hey, let's go see the new Brad Pitt flick. And she says, I really want to do that tonight. Why don't we do something else? And I say, I really want to see the movie. Thanks anyway. And I hang up and call somebody else to see the movie. Now, some of you are cringing, right? But in a companionship level, the activity is more important than the person. The person becomes interchangeable. It's okay for me to want to go to a movie and poll people until I find someone to go with me. That's okay. If you say, I really want to go to a movie, I want to go shopping, it's okay for me to say, no, go ahead, go shopping, I'm going to a movie. That's a companionship level. And we're going to talk in a minute, we're going to talk about people that are married for a long time and how they handle the same levels, okay? The next level up, the third level, is the friendship level, which is the reverse of companionship. In a friendship, two people associate for the purpose of mutual support and the enjoyment of each other. The person is important and the activity is secondary. In a friendship, I call you up and say, I want to spend some time with you. Then we decide on the content of the shared activity. I want to see a movie and that person doesn't. We begin changing the activity because our primary goal is to spend time together and with each other, right? So I want to go see that new Brad Pitt movie, and I want to go shopping. Or I want to stay home and cuddle. So there's a thing called compromise, okay? One of you have to compromise. You have to realize that both of you at this moment in time are operating on different relationship levels. One is in a friendship level, one is in a companionship level. So, it might be, okay, I'll tell you what, let's stay home and hang out together, and tomorrow we'll go to a movie. Not such a bad choice, right? So people relate on many different levels at any given time. So here, the example is the husband comes home and he wants to see a movie. His wife, also who works, is really lonely and wants to spend some good intimate time with her husband. The husband is companion orientated that night. He wants someone to share a movie with him. The wife is friendship orientated. She wants the person to be a friend and share an evening with her. And if they're coming from dysfunctional families, they don't recognize that they're on two different relationship levels, like we just talked about. Because they never talked about this. They never discussed this. So when the husband invites the wife into a companionship role by inviting her to see a movie and she rejects him by suggesting they cuddle up on the couch in front of the television and want to talk to each other, the trouble starts. The husband says, fine, you cuddle up and I'm going to call Jack and go see the movie, right? The wife gets upset, saying, you don't love me, and an argument starts, when really the real problem is that they're operating on two different levels right now. And the expectation of those levels are different. The fourth level, the final level of the relationship is romantic love. Now, this is a friendship in which there is a shared passion, sensuality, and sexuality. The express purpose of a romantic relationship is to have an intimate friend. Sexuality without a basis of friendship is not romantic love. It is a superficial relationship. I want to say that again because that's pretty powerful. Sexuality without a basis of friendship is not romantic love. It is a superficial relationship. Now, I'm not saying that's a terrible thing because it's not, unless you believe it to be romantic love. Oh, we're in love, and you're kidding yourself again. And it's really just about sex. So don't fool yourself. Now, let's look at how a healthy person uses these levels in starting a relationship. This is somebody starting a relationship, okay? Not somebody who's been in one for years. So a healthy person will meet someone superficially. They'll observe them with no commitment. They engage their gut and they feel, do I like this person? Do I feel good about them? As I observe them, do they seem to be sane? And it's not a terrible thing to evaluate the sanity of a potential partner. It's just not. If you decide this person is probably good for you, then you invite this person into a companionship level. A movie or a party, usually a safe place in public where there's no room for intense alone time. That's important. No room for intense alone time. In this level, you watch how this person interacts with others. Next, you take them to a friendship level. You start spending more and more unstructured time with them so you can get to know them better. Out of friendship emerges sexuality. I know some of you going, wait a minute, you got that backwards. No, I don't, because we're talking about healthy people, not us. Friendship doesn't emerge out of sexuality. Sexuality emerges out of friendship for healthy people. For us, we call it all kinds of things. So if you meet somebody and suddenly your hormones take over, a different message is triggered. And I hate to suggest that many of us think with that part of our body, but early in our relationship, it happens a lot. Listen to this. If sexuality is the primary foundation of a relationship, it will lead into a dysfunctional relationship 90% of the time. I'll say that again. If sexuality is the primary foundation of a relationship, it will lead into a dysfunctional relationship 90% of the time. The relationships that survive are ones that go through the stages that sexuality emerges out of the friendship and the relationship is moved through the stages of superficial involvement, companionship, friendship, romantic love. And it's not over once you're in love with someone. You don't die and go to heaven at that point. your life will not be wonderful, fine, and fixed. Because then romantic love moves into a functional association with the other person. As you begin to share your life with him or her, you make commitments to meet each other's physical, emotional, and social needs. It means that if that person gets cancer, you don't walk out. You participate together to pay the bills, to pay the rent, to keep your house going. If you have children, you're making commitments that are not to be taken lightly. In the old days, this was called marriage. But today, it's often just a pre-marriage arrangement called living together or cohabitating. We don't have a good word for it, and we need one to legitimize it for what it really is. Does somebody have a question? No. So functional association typically has two stages. You live together and then you get married. And when you look at it this way, healthy people do not get married 2 weeks after they meet each other. They just don't. That's not healthy. Normal people may meet someone and go to bed on the first date, but then you have to realize that that's like the aspect of that is danger, really. It's like placing one bullet in the chamber of a 6-shooter and putting the gun to your head and pulling the trigger. Okay, it may be that you develop something in common other than sexuality, or perhaps you walk away with a sexually transmitted disease. It's high-risk relationships. But of course, when our hormones do the talking, we tend to use sexuality to shut off the brain and the emotions. With this in mind, let's take a look at what happens in addictive relationships versus healthy ones. The addictive relationship moves from superficial involvement into companionship, friendship, romantic love, and functional association, all in, say, about 22 minutes.
How long should it take? About 4 days?
The addictive relationship can be divided into 8 categories. So we're going to talk about these 8 addictive relationship styles and the healthy ones that counter each of them. So the first one we're going to talk about, the dysfunctional one first, and then the healthy one after. So the first one we're talking about is magic. We call that magical or unrealistic expectation. Magical thinking. Okay. Before you ever meet your partner, you know what this relationship is going to be like. I believe an intimate relationship is going to make my life better without the need to think better or to act better. As soon as I find her, the one, then I'm going to be okay. I don't have to do anything. Just the fact that I have found her is going to make me okay. That's magical thinking. Okay. By the mere fact of my involvement with this person, every aspect of me and my life will just automatically get better, and I won't have to do anything about it. I'll be fixed. It's going to fix me and make me something I'm not with very little or no effort. That's magical thinking. I know probably a lot of us have had that going on in our life before. So the healthy answer to that is, we're going to call it rational or realistic expectation. In contrast to the magical expectations of the addictive relationship, healthy relationships are realistic. If you are unemployed and get into a healthy relationship, the only difference is that you will be an unemployed person with a healthy relationship. If you have a good, intimate relationship, you have a good lover, friend, and companion with whom you can talk about the stress of being unemployed. It doesn't change you. So nothing else is going to change except the fact that you're now in a relationship. Okay. Now, the second one is instant gratification. This is a big one. Addictive relationships are based on a foundation of intense sexuality. Bells and whistles go off. You just can't wait because of the tremendous animal magnetism going on, right? If you're single and newly recovering in the AA program, be careful when you go to a meeting or a social event like a party or something. If you look across the room and that person leaps out at you with that high animal magnetism, don't walk the other way, run the other way. I don't know how this works, but when I was single, I dated some real sickies. Well, I do know how it works. I was sick. I was at a party and I saw somebody, and boom, the bong went off, and that was it, right? Instant gratification creates immediate, intense, and continuous satisfaction. I'm going to say that again. Instant gratification creates an immediate, intense, and continuous satisfaction. In an addictive relationship, you expect your partner to provide you with immediate, instant, and continuous gratification anytime you want it. Isn't that what love's all about? I love you, blow my mind, on demand. What used to blow my mind and give me instant gratification before? Alcohol and drugs, right? That blows my mind on demand. In an addictive relationship, you are looking for a living, breathing drug with the appropriate sex organs, because that's what you've been taught. If you come from an alcoholic family, the only positive relationship you ever witnessed is the love relationship between your addictive parents and their drug. As a result, even if you have chosen not to use the drug, you have witnessed that effect, and it is all-consuming passion. You've learned that this is the only thing that won't abandon you. You've got to get that feeling somewhere, so you select people who can provide it for you. And that feeling, which requires an adrenaline surge, along with the sexual attraction, is typically associated with fear. So the counter of that, the healthy part of that, is we're just going to call it build slowly. Where the addictive relationship demands intense personal sharing instantly, the healthy relationship builds slowly, gradually, and systematically to determine its future sharing is safe. There is a game plan. And if you come from a dysfunctional family and start dating someone, you better run back to your sponsor or a meeting and say, this is what happened. Tell me what you think. You really need a reality check. When you conduct a relationship this way, it'll feel abnormal. Building slowly, right? It's going to feel abnormal because for you, the norm is addictive. I told one sponsee to slow down and take 6 or 10 weeks to decide if she really wanted to get involved with this guy one time. And she said, but that's almost 3 months. I can't wait that long. I said, how long has it been since you had a sexual relationship? She said, 1.5 years. But she was adamant that she couldn't wait. All right. Here's the thing. Healthy people are looking for long-term commitment, not instant gratification. Long-term commitment, not instant gratification. The primary value of the relationship is not the shared sexual thrills. It is contentment, security, and peace of mind. Mentally healthy people plan for their best interest in the long term of their life. This, incidentally, does not go against the program, one day at a time. And one day at a time doesn't mean that you don't plan. Just one day at a time means that you pay attention to what you're doing now, but you're still looking to the future. You don't pick a partner based solely on how he or she makes you feel today. This is important stuff for
So there's a red car and then that badass little black and white car sitting there needs to be moved because that little guy's gonna run over trying to get this truck.
Oh, the whole course out
Yeah.
there. Who's driving the whole?
In a red car.
Okay. All right. Building slowly frees you because you don't have to pick only perfect people to go out with on the first date. You're now selecting and walking away from anyone who triggers the gong inside of you. So who are you selecting? Here's another rule. Build a self-protective mechanism into the relationship. We're still on the healthy part here, okay? This is an important and vital concept, especially early in recovery. Addictive relationships happen instantaneously while your hormones do the talking and thinking. There is no developmental process of getting to know each other. There is no self-protective process built into the relationship. Make sure you can protect yourself. As a matter of fact, I recommend don't go to bed on the first date. Don't go to bed with somebody on the first date. I don't just recommend this to women. I recommend this to all the guys that I work. How many dates you want to designate before sleeping together is up to you, but make a commitment to stick to it. I kind of recommend at least 3, 6 if you can. Some people view sex as a casual thing. You go out on the first date, you go to bed with somebody, you never hear from them again. For some, this may be fine, but others find it very painful. It used to be the exclusive providence of men abusing women this way, but that's changed. Women are engaging in that particular sport too, right? If you say no to sex on the first, second, or third date, you'll find out if he's going to call you again. If he doesn't, he probably wouldn't have called you even if you had slept with him. So now, with this built-in self-protective mechanism, you can screen these guys ahead of time. Here's another rule for you. Never have sex with your partner if you don't generally feel good about him or her. Never go to bed with somebody out of guilt or obligation. Those are hallmarks of addictive relationships. And above all, never go to bed with someone because you believe it will change him or her. And never go to bed with somebody because you feel obligated to. Some real deep, powerful suggestions there. And we talked about before, how do you get into all of these little things are going to help you change. Just like every little thing we do in the AA program helps you change who you are. All of these little tips help you change who you are. If you want to really change, you have to get some information, practice in your life, and you'll change. All right. The next thing is for the dysfunctional side is dishonesty. There's a belief that the relationship will be destroyed if you know everything there is to know about your partner and also know he knows everything about you. I can't be honest because he'd leave me or she'd leave me. We wouldn't work out together. The whole thing would crumble into dust, right? Then comes the no talk rules. I can't talk about certain aspects of my inner experience. I can't give you feedback about your experiences and how it impacts on me. There's a no talk rules are necessary to keep the fear alive, to keep the excitement alive, to keep the sexual passion going. These things are, so the counter to that obviously is honesty. A healthy relation is based on rigorous honesty. Healthy people, before they make commitments interpersonally, want to share with their partner the nature of who they are. They want to know that they are accepted unconditionally and that they will not need to keep secrets. They make a commitment to be fully conscious of their partner. And as a matter of fact, they get offended when they find their partner has been keeping secrets from them so much that this could be grounds for ending the relationship. Healthy relationships don't tolerate secrets. Let me say that again. Healthy relationships don't tolerate secrets. Secrets are for people that can't handle the truth. That was a pause to let that sink in. This doesn't mean that you truck out the litany of every little thing you've done in the past. You don't share every single concrete incident in your life, everything you've done wrong. You share the nature of your wrongs and the past problems. You share the type of person you've been and the type of person you're becoming. And if your partner can't handle that, there is no future there anyway. But don't do it on the first date. Don't do it on the second date or the third date. Okay? So it's not about having a date with somebody and sitting down with them. This is your first date, and then I want you to know that I'm an alcoholic. I'm in AA. Oh, that's okay. I'm glad you're doing something. Do what you like. Yeah. I used to be a heroin addict. Okay, I'm glad you're not anymore. And I've been in prison. Too much information. A healthy person's going to get up and run away.
Right.
Another AA might marry you, but yeah. People going after addictive relationships are dishonest. There are things going on in their hearts and minds that they don't share with their partners because the belief is if I share that and they know that about me, they will not love me anymore. It's based on the belief that you are inherently unlovable. One thing some of you guys do our class every week here, and one thing that if you think about it, I've stressed over and over and over to you almost all the time is how valuable you are and how much God loves you and how much you're really worth. And I always stress that, right? Because we come in here and we have these low opinions of ourselves and we really think that we're unlovable. And we're just the complete opposite of that. It's the truth, really. All right. The characteristics of an addictive relationship, number 4. Compulsive and obsessive over control. Since you can't be honest, you have to be sneaky. This starts the attempts at compulsive over control. You have to keep the climate just right so the relationship will blow your mind on demand. You believe that without intense, continual effort, the relationship will self-destruct. There's even the belief that if you stop thinking about it, even for a minute, it's going to fade away. So you become obsessed with the relationship. You begin thinking about the relationship when it would be more appropriate to be thinking about something other than that. Like if you're at work or something, right? Your compulsion about the relationship becomes overwhelming. And we talked about the guy that gets in a relationship and you don't see him for 3 weeks, right? It's you and me against the world. Then they meet somebody, they're talking to a friend in AA or something, and a friend says, hey, she's not good for you. It doesn't mean that she's no good. That's a warning that you're way off track. And when he hears that, when you tell him she's no good for you, he's gone again. Because they don't people just don't understand the religious meaning of this spiritual relationship I'm having with this woman. And so I have to isolate myself with her again. The essence of obsessive over control lies in the fact that you can't talk to each other. You've got two people trying to control one another. You're both saying, I can't tell you who I am or what I want because you'll leave me. So I'm going to try to trick you into giving me what I want without telling you about it. You expect the other person to read your mind. And if he or she doesn't recognize that you want something and doesn't give it to you, you get upset and try to manipulate it and manipulate them into it. And so the healthy answer to that is not obsessed with love. Okay. Healthy people, when they are single, are not psychotically obsessed with finding a partner. They're really not. I heard that. They may be obsessed with becoming a person who's worthy to be loved. If you put the same energy in becoming a person who is worthy to be loved, you don't have to compulsively hunt out somebody to love. Somebody will find you. That's what we talked about earlier, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, I got to make myself as close to the 10 as possible. When you spend all your time looking for someone else, you don't have any time to work on yourself. Stop getting involved with all these women or men and open up space in your life so something can happen. This is how it starts. You've got to work on yourself. Many people have looked out on the dating scene and said, there are no quality people out there for me to get involved with. Who are you saying that about? I've done workshops on intimacy before, and I've taken the men to one side and the women to one side, and I asked, what's your biggest problem? And they all say, there's nobody really quality out there for me. And I asked them to consider themselves about that for a minute. And, it's a funny thing. It's kind of like, so years ago, I went on that Match.com, right? And I thought, well, I don't want nobody to know that I'm on Match.com. There's something wrong with that I have to go on there to find. There's something wrong with people on there, right? That was my initial thought. Then I said, wait a minute. I'm okay. I'm a decent guy. If I'm going to be on there, there's got to be somebody else that's on there too, right? So That's kind of what we're talking about here, right? There's nobody, no good quality people, right? But there are. So really, this is delusional thinking, really. All right. Lack of trust is the next addictive thing. Lack of trust. People in addictive relationships don't trust each other. They never know what the other one is going to do. They have to trick them into being responsible. And the healthy part of that is rational trust. And rational trust is the belief that a person will always act in accordance with their nature as a human being, with their natural free-flowing preferences in life. All human beings will naturally pursue what they believe to be in their best interest to their best of their ability. If you get hooked up with somebody and expect him or her to act in non-accordance with his or her nature, it won't work. And I made a note to share this something with you here. Well, before I want to tell you about this guy that I sponsored that had a cat, right? He bought a cat and he got really mad at this cat. And I asked him, what was the cat doing? And he said, the cat is just all over everything in the house. He climbs in the bookshelves and he won't get off of the couch. And I've been trying to teach him to keep off of the furniture and he won't stay off. So I asked him why he was trying to do that. And he said, because when I had my dog never got on the couch. And so he expected the cat to violate its basic nature, right? And don't forget that important reason, because people have their basic nature too. And they're not going to change that. If somebody's nature doesn't fit yours, you're not going to change it. If you commit with someone and you struggle to change their nature, it's not going to work. I had a relationship with a lady years ago, and it was we really got along great. We were together about 5 or 6, 7 years, something like that. We got along great. We enjoyed each other's company. She was sober, I was sober. We were doing the deal, and sex was great. Everything was good about the relationship, but she had a daughter from Children of the Corn. And you can't make this shit up. I'm Italian. I come from a loving Italian family. And, her nature of bringing this child up was completely different than my beliefs and my nature. And there was no way I can deal with it. I just could not deal with it. I went to pick her up one time and her daughter's cursing her out like, I mean, you effing this, you F that, and that. The daughter's saying to the mom, I'm going, I gotta get out of here. I couldn't listen to that. The kid was just bad. So there was a period for about a year or so that I was expecting, I shared with her how I felt about all that. And I was expecting her to change who she is. Her nature is, this is how she brought this kid up. And she's a great person, but she had no discipline with her kid. And so we just couldn't stay together no more. I used to sell jewelry, and I had just got a shipment of gold chains in, and I had them on my kitchen table. And we went out to dinner one night, and when I came back home, there was a chain missing. So I called her up. I said, "You owe me X amount of dollars. Your daughter stole my chain." How do you know she took it? I said, somebody broke in and took one and left the other 12 sitting there. So I got to the point where I didn't allow the kid at my house anymore. And then my daughter says to me, my daughter used to like them. My kids used to like her a lot, but they couldn't respect her no more. She was still seeing me with not letting her daughter be. And that made sense to me. And I realized that I'm trying to impose my ways on her. And I just needed to let her be who she was with her kid. And I had to butt out of it. And I loved her and she loved me. And if it weren't for the kid, we probably would have got married and still been together. Good person. But I was expecting her to change the very nature of who she was, what we're just talking about here. And it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Okay. So that was her fundamental nature. And of course, the relationship didn't work. Now, not every couple can build a productive relationship. Healthy people know and accept this. So her and I could not build a healthy, productive relationship. So they go through a rational process of screening, say, hey, will this person fit with me the way I am, or will I have to change? And if I have to change too much, I'm not interested. Aside from the normal process of growth, I'm not willing to change fundamentally who I am as a human being to accommodate another person. If it's not a joy to be around me the way I am, given, of course, that I'm not totally pathological, I'm not interested in that kind of relationship. And that's what happens. Okay. And that's okay. That's okay. All right. The sixth thing is alternating doubts. Addictive relationships encourage persistently alternating doubts about yourself and your partner. Sometimes I think there must be something wrong with me because relationship is failing. I must be inherently defective and feel a sense of shame, or I must be doing something wrong, or I feel a sense of guilt. Then you say it's not me, it's her, and then they get into the blaming and the scapegoating. There must be something inherently wrong with her, and there's something wrong with me. Have you ever found yourself complaining about your partner and then find someone you're talking to with maturity in the program say, well, geez, what is it about you that attracts you to somebody like that? And why are you staying in something like that? That's what I asked you before. All right. So that's the question. What keeps you involved with somebody like that? So alternating doubts all lead back to you. If you're hooked up with the world's first-class loser, then what's wrong with you that you are? I got to be defective or something. And I'm going to try to skim through this. We're not going to finish at 4 if that's okay. Can we go over some? Okay. Voluntarily free-flowing cooperation is the healthy answer to that. A healthy person isn't very interested in a relationship that's going to take a lot of work. Healthy people expect the norm of the relationship to be voluntary, free-flowing cooperation. It's comfortable, secure, and feels nice. You don't have to hide, struggle, walk on eggshells, control, or manipulate. Every once in a while, you experience abnormal periods of problems, but you know you will solve these problems together through cooperation. Then you go back to the norm, which is comfortable, satisfying, good times. People from dysfunctional families believe that the norm of the relationship is constantly to struggle and occasionally have a few moments of good feelings, and then they degrade back into the struggle. A lot of time, the energy is spent on trying to change their partner, fit them into their mold. The next thing, number 7, is isolation. And we talked about this, all right? So I'm going to skip through this. You and me against the world, just right. And the answer to that is social integration. Healthy relationship is socially integrated. When healthy people get involved in relationship, they keep their old friends and together develop new ones. Okay. So the next one on number 8 is the repeating cycle of pain. So this is the way it goes. Finally, addictive relationships produce a repeating cycle of pain. There is a cycle of desperate action. I'll do anything to make this relationship work, followed by short-term, intense pleasure. My mind blows out of its circuits, and it's wonderful. It was worth the beating. It was worth the fight. It was worth the 6 months of ripping my guts to shreds for this one night of pleasure. And then it blows your mind again, blows up again. And there's more pain followed by disillusionment. Maybe this is never going to work. You blame your partner, you start blaming yourself, and that's how it goes. The addictive relationship has a cycle of repeating pain that goes like this: intense pleasure, intense pain, disillusionment, blaming your partner, blaming yourself, and desperate actions to make it happen all over again. The answer to that is a cycle. The healthy way is a cycle of deepening contentment. Healthy relationships repeat a cycle of deepening contentment. There is a satisfaction and contentment with the partner. When a problem develops that creates pain, it results in, you ready for this? It results in pain, problem solving. Holy shit. Problem-solving behaviors. You rationally look at the problem and realize that you're not enemies. You're in this together, and you put your mutual brain power together to work for resolution. Then your intimacy is heightened, and you go back to your normal state of being content with one another. Healthy relationships work differently because they involve a developmental process of growing in each other's presence and processing through levels of development. All right, I'm going to skip through that. Okay, healthy people know how to get out of a relationship. If you have never gotten out of a relationship responsibly, I suggest that before you get into a serious relationship with anybody, you give yourself the homework assignment of getting in and out of 3 relationships in quick succession. This may sound silly, but these relationships should be longer than just the weekend, but not, months and months. None of the let's have a meaningful relationship tonight types. Okay. It's okay to get out of a relationship that's not going to work before you commit to it. And that's something that we got to learn. Healthy people do not lose themselves in their relationships. This is important. I am me, you are you, and we are us. Years ago, when I was doing this, putting this together a long time ago, I went back to New York and I went to a wedding. I think it was my cousin got married or something. And we're Catholic, so it was a Catholic wedding. And a lot of people were there, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching the priest at the altar. He had them come up, and there was a candle lit here and a candle lit there. And he asked them to grab their candles, and they grabbed it. And he walked them to the center. It was a big thing. And he asked them to take their candles and light this candle. And they did that. And then they blew out their candles. And I went, oh, everybody was crying and going how beautiful that was. And I went, shit. They just blew out their individuality. The 2 are now 1. No, we're not. 2 are not 1. There's always going to be me and my shit, you and your shit, and us and our shit. And I better know the difference. And that's important.
I'll say that again.
Yeah.
We gotta have a repeat on that. Rewind.
You and your shit, me and my shit, and us and our shit. And you got to know the difference. You really got to know the difference. Because sometimes with my wife today, like I'm about to say something and I bite my tongue. Oh, wait a minute. You know what? That's not my shit. And that's not our shit. She's going to deal with that herself. I'm keeping my mouth shut. But that's the truth. And healthy people recognize that. There's problems that I have to solve on my own. There's problems you have to solve as my partner. And there's problems that we have to solve. And that's just healthy people realize that there's no such thing as a perfect relationship. Their expectations are realistic. I said before, if you're not open to get hurt in a relationship, then you'll never get to truly love, because love is a free expression of choice. And I have to know that. All right, let's see what we can skip over all this stuff here. So sharing, we talked earlier about sharing, this is how I feel about something. This is, all of that stuff is, I'm sorry, but I don't want to get into all of that. But if your partner is unable to know and talk about what they need and want, the process of intimacy collapses. Intimacy is achieving your basic needs so you're comfortable, and your basic wants so you're happy. Intimacy. Into me, you see. I allow that. I need to allow you to see into me. Okay. The norm in life today is that each person will have 3 to 5 substantial, serious relationships. So it's not, it used to be, that you get married, you stay married. People grow out of each other, and if you practice this healthy stuff, you tend to stay together a lot more. And if you get out of the addictive relationship styles. And so what I'm going to do, because lack of time, is I got some things I want to share with you at the end, but has anybody got any questions on what we've talked about? I skipped over a bunch of stuff just now, but anybody got any questions that they, anybody online got any questions? I'm gonna talk about some of the things we discussed that we would. Okay,
Can you repeat the question? I didn't hear.
I just asked if you have any questions. No. Okay,
Oh,
is that somebody who got their hand up? No? Okay. All right, here's some ideas that you can start to work in your life and to help you start changing your relationships right away. When the situation is going on in your life, start talking to your partner about it. How do you feel about that?
when some shit.
No,
She said,
no, when any kind of a situation,
okay.
good or bad,
Gotcha.
doesn't have to be shit. Could be,
Good shit.
in other words, what you're gonna start practicing is communication with your partner, right?
Okay.
But so how do you feel about that? And guys, you have to listen to the answer, okay? What do you think about this? And I always ask, here's something interesting. I've done this all over the place for years. I ask people, couples, when I do this kind of, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you like your relationship to be? Most people say, most guys will say 10, women will say 9, And then I ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, where is your relationship now? And I ask him to write it down. And I look, the guy always says 9, 8 or 9, and the woman says 3 or 4. And the guy, 3 or 4, he looks at it, he goes, I'm here, ain't I? So then the question then is, so what can we do in the next few days and weeks to bring us to where we'd like to be from where we're at in this relationship? And that's a question you ask each other and answer. And here's a good one. This is a good win-win situation. The woman gives the man 3 options for a date a week in advance. Okay, the woman gives the man 3 options for a date a week in advance. The man decides which one he is going to do, but he doesn't tell the woman until the date happens. Now, this allows the woman to anticipate the date all week and allows the man to feel like he made the decision. Don't ruin it. So, but it's a win-win situation. It's an interesting week and an interesting day. Because love is more than a feeling. It requires good attitudes and good actions. 3 important factors with love is 1, care. We care for those we love. 2, responsibility, a response to the need of others. 3, respect, to treat it with esteem in all areas. Love is responsible behavior toward others based on respect and care. How significant is your significant other? We asked that before. Love may be made in heaven, but the footwork must be done here on earth. Love cannot be forced or hurried. It can't accommodate your schedule. Okay, now I think I did a decent job of keeping it clean and not being foul-mouthed or anything. But I'm going to change that for a minute. Just for a minute. And for you ladies, this is for you ladies. I want you ladies to pay attention to what I'm going to tell you. I'm giving you life-changing information here. There's only 3 things that a guy can have. 3 things. And excuse my language. Dick. Good dick. good person, got his shit together. Now, here's the thing. You heard the first one, right? Good person and got his shit together is the second and the third. I didn't realize it was a kid. I don't know. Repeat that. So here's the thing. You can only have two of those three. Too bad. But you can only have two of those three. Now, there are guys that have all three of those things. They're far and few in between. Most of them are taken. But there are a few here and there. But basically speaking, you have to cut your expectations down a little bit and settle for two of those three things, because that's the way it's going to be. The other night I was in bed with my wife and I said to her, honey, I'm a good guy, ain't I? She said, yeah. And I said, so that was good, wasn't it? And she looked at me and she said, well, at least you got your shit together. All right, listen, I'm sorry I skipped through some stuff, but I just wanted to keep it as close to time as possible. Any questions before we quit? No, thank you guys for allowing me to do this. I hope you got something out of it. Thank you guys online. Yeah, and then hit.